the situation in eThekwini, where the mayor, Mxolisi Kaunda, is still on a tour of flood-stricken areas of the metro. Earlier, residents of the eThekwini asked the mayor if he could bring in sniffer dogs to see if there are any bodies trapped under the rubble. 7 people, including a 2-month-old baby, are still missing. Our reporter Ziyanda Ngobo has been with the mayor today. Ziyanda, good afternoon to you. So many stories coming out of this, so much heartbreak. What are people there telling you?
Too much heartbreak, I must say, Stephen, at this stage. I mean, after leaving eThekwini, where there are 7 people missing, including a 2-month-old baby, we went to another area in Ward 14, Emantsenteni, still in Dassenhoek, where we weren't even able to cross to you, Stephen, because the signal is so bad. We weren't able to get anything, and the situation there is so dire. They have no water, they have no food, they have no electricity, they don't have cell phones, let alone even a network. And houses collapsed on top of each other, and residents themselves had to save at least 7 of their neighbors from the rubble. 2 remain in hospital, and another 4 passed away, sadly. So that was in another area, but still in the eThekwini area. We're still there, Stephen Curtis, where now I'm going to step out of shots and show you how residents are walking and braving the current, which has been strengthening as we've been standing here waiting to speak to you, Stephen. But I must tell you, in terms of the geography, where we are, this is literally the only way to get into this particular township or informal settlement. So if you continue to the top of the road, you will reach Marin Hill. Those who live in Durban will know St. Francis College. So if you continue driving up, then you're able to immediately connect to the N3 highway. And if you turn left, the Marin Hill Toll Plaza is literally parallel from where we are. In fact, let's try and speak to some. Okay, so he says they weren't particularly scared. I mean, it's quite scary because earlier on, Stephen, we saw a car getting stuck. The only vehicles that have been able to pass through are 4x4s. Sicela ukukhuluma nawe. Yindaba ongicela ungimele ngapha mhlawumbe yindaba uzama ukuwela lo mfula ngoba uyabona nje lamanzi anamandla. Kungani mhlawumbe bengekho enye indlela obungayithatha bungasabi?
Asekho amandla ngalo nje. Uma sefika edolweni ngaphansi kwedolo nje.
Kodwa uwazi uma ungena nje if kunomgodi phakathi angithi.
No, from ekuseni sike sawela. Uma kudlula imoto, which means umuntu angakwazi ukudlula.
Kukude kangakanani lapho oya khona njengamanje?
But ngoba ngihamba ngeenyawo about 40 minutes. 40 minutes, yeah.
Ukuya la uhlala. Uzowalk 40 minutes
from here.
Awekho ama-taxi, ayisekho imodweni eyihambayo.
Local. 6 rand.
All right, no, that's fine. Siyabonga kakhulu ukuthi ukhulume nathi. Well, Stephen, this resident was basically telling me that no, they weren't afraid to cross over this particular stream because they felt that, the water was shallow enough to try and brave it. He said, in fact, this morning they actually did the same, where they were able to pass by this bridge. But this is a low bridge, as you can see. And as I was mentioning earlier, it's only vans that have been able to pass by. And it would seem that if you are from the area, you would know just how deep it is, because that's what I asked that gentleman over there to say. But you don't know how deep the damage is in terms of the depth of the water. But you can see another resident trying to cross over, and he was saying, that to get to where he's going, it's going to take another 40 minutes. Where we are, Stephen, there's usually a taxi rank literally about 10 meters away, but we haven't even seen any taxis, which tells you that there are either no taxis or they're very limited. In fact, there's one just driving down here that is ferrying passengers, and we'll wait to see in a few moments to see if it too will cross over. But I was saying to you, Stephen, that this current is strengthening by the minute, and it's concerning because we know that whilst today there's sunshine and the weather has forgiven us, tomorrow expecting more rainfall. All right, so you see that taxi seems to be making a U-turn, probably going to find another route to take. But earlier on, there was a vehicle that literally got stuck, and we could see it being moved by the current. So here's another low vehicle that is trying to make its way through. So some really, Stephen, are brave enough to try and cross this bridge. Not sure what confidence they have. Oh, it's reversing now. We can see that this is not really the greatest idea at this point in time, but not an easy situation as residents try as well to figure out how to maneuver the change in their lives when it comes to shelter, when it comes to transport, being able to have access to food. And I think the most important thing here is not having signal. So even when you want to call for help, it becomes a very tricky and dire situation. Like I was saying to you, at some stage in our day, we were off the grid for a good 2 hours. So imagine those who are in a desperate situation, who might be wanting to relocate relatives, but are unable to do so because their phones are either lost or there's just simply no signal at all.
Andrew, if you look behind you now, we can see a truck that I think is going to try and actually come across. It may well be worth just staying with us while we watch this. Truck's, of course, a much stronger engine. One of the things you don't want to happen if you drive any of these engines is get that exhaust pipe underwater. But you can see the truck is putting foot there and able to actually come through. And Zianda, it also shows us how deep this water is, because you can see how far underwater the truck went.
Exactly, Stephen. And, whilst the rainfall that might land tomorrow may not be as strong as what occurred on Tuesday or Wednesday, but the concern now is because of the extent of the damage that has been experienced and those areas that might have just survived, the recent flooding, the rainfall that lands tomorrow and the following days, if the predictions of the South African Weather Service are anything to go by, we might see streams like this getting more water filling up, which means the situation is more exacerbated. Those areas where the mudslides just missed their homes might actually land this time. So the concern is we may be headed for even further devastation, further fatalities as we head into the Easter weekend, the first one since at least 2 years that will see less restrictions. And I can tell you, just looking at the N3 from where we're standing in eThekwini, you could see that the N3 was relatively quiet, but one wonders then if later in the afternoon we'll start seeing volumes as some try to actually come home to check if their relatives are okay. And we know then that the mayor, the premier and the cooperative governance MEC in this province will be giving us an update at 6 o'clock as to what exactly the plans are for literally those such as those as MHN who have no food and there's no nearby hall, Stephen. So that's another thing. That area has absolutely no infrastructure whatsoever, and so they would need to literally be rescued and moved to a different part of the city.
Andrew Ngcobo for that live update. Thank you very much indeed. Just the most incredible scenes. Well,